I've hit record. Let me just hit the play. You can all hear me all right, I guess. Give me my high field here. Flashbacks. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Those that don't know me, my name is Roger Wambolt. I'm with Corel. Have been for a couple of years. Close to 20, actually. Just a show of hands. I know this question was asked this morning. Who was here for the first time? Okay, good. Who is using Corel DRAW X5 still? X6? X7? You lie. Actually, you would be if you put in that number. I want to make just tell you guys something. Last year, I gave away some copies of certificates for premium upgrades. That was the $99 upgrade that some people like to joke about. That upgrade actually, thanks Todd, that upgrade also entitles you to Corel DRAW X7 when it comes out. I'm pleased to announce that as of 9 o'clock this morning, Corel DRAW X7 was released. So those that have that certificate, if you log into the Corel.com website, log into your own account there, and you'll be able to download X7 today or when you get back to the shop. I'm not going to be covering X7 in this session. If you have questions about it, what's included and that sort of thing, I can certainly tell you. I do not currently have it installed, but that's that. What I plan to do this time around is cover more troubleshooting. I want to get some feedback from you guys as to the types of issues you're having, and hopefully we can address those. There's a couple of people I want to give a shout out to that helped me prepare this. Ronnie, Ethan, Todd, Kat, there's a number of you that have helped immensely in providing me file content and feedback, and I appreciate that. And so I will be showing a couple of files. We'll be dissecting one or two files here. I believe, I'm not sure if I put those files in the Dropbox, but or in the Google Drive rather. But you'll see them on screen and online as well. For those that are online, if you have any questions at all throughout the session, feel free to just type in your question. On the right-hand side, you'll have a go-to panel or a WebEx panel where you can type in a question, and I'll try to answer those as we go along, or at the end of the session, I'll go back to those questions and answer them for you. This session is also being recorded. All right, so let's just dig in right away with Corel DRAW. In the Google Drive, I've included some files. And let me just close this off. Just basically want to show you what files are in there.
Just open the file out of that folder. Don't open Corel. Just open the file out of the folder, and it should open up. There we go. Nice open Google Drive folder. Yeah. And then open the TMS 2014.
No, actually, sorry. The TMS 2014 is the file that I will be going through after this particular file. This file I've got on screen right now is more cue cards for me than anything else. You do not have a copy of this file. It's only 3 pages long, I think. It's just text on a screen to allow me to talk about troubleshooting content. That being said, the PDF file in that folder called Troubleshooting 101 is basically the information I'm going to be talking about. So that's a PDF file of the document. Also in that folder, you'll find tips, tricks, and techniques. That is a PDF that I've created based on one of the appendices in my book. It's 50 tips and tricks in Corel DRAW. Non-version specific, so those using X5 or X6 or even X3 will still be able to make use of those tips and tricks. And then the other file in there is the Corel DRAW Getting Started Guide. It's an 8-page document that I've created that gives a high-level overview of almost everything you can do in Corel DRAW, or as much as I can put on 8 pages with really, really small type. Okay. Excuse me. All right, so that's the content of the file. First thing I want to talk about is troubleshooting the system and troubleshooting Corel DRAW specifically. Video, because of the nature of the application is very, very graphic intensive, you want to make sure that you're running with a current video driver. The easiest way to check that is from the Windows key, letter R, and this information is in this document. There's no need to write it down. I'm just basically paraphrasing what I put in the document. Windows key, letter R, and type in DX, D-I-A-G. Now, I should also mention that I've been having problems with, or issues with my system as well. I've recently, last week, installed 8.1, and it's not playing very nice with a number of my different drivers. So running DX diag will bring up this dialog box. On the second tab over, you'll find you'll see the display tab. In here, we can find out what the driver date is of the current video driver. Anytime you're having problems printing, if you're printing to a non-PostScript printer, you'll want to make sure you have a current video driver. I'll explain why a little bit later on. So if we open up the DX diag tab, and upper right-hand corner, third line down is the date. So this is the date of my current. This is the current date for. This is the date of the driver that I currently have installed. Mine's a little bit dated. Check yours on your system when you go back to the shop, especially if you're having problems with things not drawing properly on the screen, message boxes not displaying. Sometimes if you fit text to a path, you'll see artifacts on the screen. A Control W will refresh that. Also, clicking this horizontal scroll bar will also refresh Corel Draw screen. If that causes those artifacts to disappear, then your problem is more than likely video display driver. And I typically say that any more than 3 months old is an outdated driver, and you'll need to update that. The next thing is font issues. You guys use a lot of fonts. Now, I know there are some certain fonts that you use consistently. I mean, you have your set group of fonts, but you're also installing weird and unusual fonts from DaFont or 1001 Fonts or FontBox. So there's all kinds of websites that have different types of fonts, different quality of fonts. And so sometimes installing these fonts can pose a bit of a problem. Corel Draw ships with Bitstream Font Navigator, and Bitstream, for those that aren't aware of what it is, it allows you to create font folders. In the Mac, we call them font suitcases, but it allows you to create font folders so you can dial up and bring in these fonts when you need to. Bear with me a second. Some of the things that can cause problems when you're dealing with fonts, sometimes you might print a document and the text will drop out. That could be a font issue. Change the font. Does the text still drop out? If it doesn't, then you know it's an issue with the font. If it still drops out, then there's other things we can take a look at, and I'll talk about those very shortly. Sometimes if you type some text on the screen, it might look like that after you finish typing a string of text. And all you have are the sizing handles. That's usually a corrupt font. Okay. Sometimes if you have a piece of text and it drops out, one thing you can do is give the text an outline. If you give it a hairline outline, color white, or whatever the color of the background is, that might help the font print as well. Another issue that you can have potential problems with, and this is a big one, are temporary files. When Corel Draw creates a document, we create a temporary file as well, and that's stored in the temp directory. If you take a look at the save process, when we save a file, we create a backup. And the way we create the backup is we first create a temporary file. As you're probably aware, you cannot have a file in the same folder with the same name at the same time. And so what Corel Draw does is it takes the content that's in memory, creates a temporary file, deletes the backup file, and then saves that as the backup. And so that's basically the way it works. If you have issues with Corel Draw and it crashes or Windows becomes unstable, Windows may not clear out those temp files. and so you'll quite often have to clear them out. I usually empty mine at least once a week. I have seen some systems that have had massive amounts of temp files. I would think any more than 2 or 3 meg, you want to get rid of those. And it's simply a matter of Windows key, letter R, type in %, TMP %, and hit the enter. That's going to open up the temp folder. Now I cleaned these out probably Wednesday. I think I cleaned these out on Monday. Control A to select everything. I usually do an Alt-Enter to see how much is in there. I've got 184 meg of temp files. Simply cancel this and hit the delete. We had a graphic designer at Corel that was having issues with his system. And so I went over, and the first thing I did is I took a look at his temp directory. He had 13.5 gig of temp files in his folder. He didn't know he had to delete them. But it was causing all sorts of problems in Corel DRAW because we use the temp folder quite a bit. And we lost power here. Oh, there we go. It went to sleep. Just bear with me for a second. Let's go to the response. See what's going on there. All right, so I guess bottom line when we're talking temp files, get rid of them. On my home system, I've actually created a little macro or a little script that when I boot up the system, it automatically goes in. An auto-exec bat file automatically goes in and blows away the temp files to keep it clean and free. They're not your friend. When we are, and I'll talk about the CDR files and whatnot in a second. Justin, you around? Front and center, sir. Oh, there you are.
Not hearing you?
Not hearing you. No. 1, 2. Hello, hello.
No, they're just hearing you.
No, they weren't hearing me. Under view. I've started the recorder.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an organizer and may now speak to any other organizers or panelists on the line. When you are ready to begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast.
All right, so that's basically it for temporary files.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
One should be working, but it's not picking up my voice.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Lisa and David. All right, so we have audio there. Let's close this off now. So that boys and girls.
There you go.
All right, perfect. All right, so we just basically, for those on the line that didn't hear, we basically just covered off video display driver as far as checking the date. We talked very briefly about font issues as well as temporary files. I'm going to go into file corruption right now. Who here has experienced a problem with a corrupt file? Love it. Nobody's put their hand up. That's great. All right. Corrupt files can be caused by a number of different objects or a number of different situations. Probably the biggest thing, especially with X6, I've seen it in X5, although X5 has its own issues we'll talk about as well. But with X6, we've done an awful lot with the compression scheme of a CDR file. You guys create massive files, and I'm not talking about dimensions, I'm talking physical weight of the file itself. I've seen files in the neighborhood of 100, 150 meg and even larger. That's a CDR file. If you decompress that CDR file, you could be upwards of 800 meg on a file. I've seen be 1/10 the size as a CDR file, but if you decompress it, it would be 10 times the size quite easily. When you think about it, and a show of hands here, who creates their files by opening up a file on a network drive and then saving it back to the network drive? Okay, probably one of the worst things you can do, and I'll explain why. Okay, no, I'm being serious. I'll explain why. If we take a file, and I've got one right here. So here's a typical file that I borrowed. And it is, right-click, go to Properties. It's 127 meg. It wouldn't surprise me if that particular file was 250 meg uncompressed. When Corel DRAW saves a file, what we do is we have a file here, it's called 8up cooler sticker template. Let's just call it 8up. So we've got a file called 8up. We've just created it and we save it to the drive. It creates the file. We're going to open up that file again, change a price, add a logo, move something around, fix a spelling mistake, whatever it happens to be, and save it again. When we save it that second time, what it's going to do is it's going to take the original file called 8up. It's going to rename, it's going to leave that there. It's going to take the original file, leave it there. It'll take what's in memory. It will create a file called a number.cdr. .tmp. It'll create that file. It will write that to the hard drive. It deletes the file called 8up, and it renames this temp file to backup of 8up. We open up the file again, or we make another save of this 150 meg file compressed, which is 250 meg. We make another change to it, and we save it. It's going to create that temp file. It's going to delete the backup of, and it's going to rename that temp file to backup of. So that's the process. So if you visualize this, you've got 250 meg file times 2 going across your network. So when you click Save, or if you have auto backup turned on, it's set to 20 minutes by default, and I'll show you how to change that. But if you've got auto backup turned on, when you go ahead and save that out, it's creating that file. Your screen is going to go pale, and you'll see that spinning circle. And I heard somebody mention last night that they hate that spinning circle. It goes pale. My thought is just leave it alone. Let it do what it's supposed to do, because what it's actually doing is it's copying that content out to the drive. If you go and muck around with it, DRAW may crash. You don't want that to happen because you could lose your file. Okay. Now, good news for those in X5 and not so good for X6. We've changed our file structure in X6. I spoke to the DM, the manager of development, DRAW development this past week, and he's working on something for me for you guys, but once we get that in place, I won't be able to give it to you. But it's a way to hopefully resurrect corrupt X6 files. There isn't right now, but for those in X5, what you can do is if you have X5, you try to open up a CDR file and you get a blank page, take a look at the file size. If it has weight to it, if it's over a meg in size, if it's over 5 meg or even 500 kilobytes, take that file. You'll want to go into Windows, the View menu, and you want to, on Windows 8, in Windows 7, it's up to the View menu and down to Options, and you'll have a View tab. Click on the View tab, and you want to select the option, it's Hide File Extension. It's on by default. You want to deselect that so that you can see the file extension. Go to the CDR file and rename the ZIP to CDR, and then open it up. I'm sorry, rename the TMP to ZIP. It's in the document. To ZIP, open it up in WinZip. And when you open it up in WinZip, you're going to see a folder structure. The folder structure will have a palettes. There's going to be a thumbnail folder. There's going to be a content folder. In the thumbnail folder is going to be bitmap images of each individual page, so you can see what was on each of the pages. And in the content folder is a file called riffdata.cdr. Take that riffdata file out, drag it to your desktop, and then open that up. And that will be your content back. It won't have the styles. It may not have the proper document color palette, but the document color palette can be easily recreated. So that's basically how you can resurrect X5 files. I was going to mention something else. Oh, in X6, unfortunately, as I say, you don't have that ability because in the content folder, the file structure in the content, the file structure in an X6 file, in the content folder are DB files. They don't have the CDR file. There's multiple DB files. But as I say, I've got the dev team working on trying to find a way to extract those DB files and create a CDR out of it. So if and when I get that done, then I'll absolutely share it. The interim, if you have a CDR file, you're in X6 and you can't open it, a couple of things you can try. First, what you want to do is reset the defaults for Corel DRAW, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Second thing you want to do is create a brand new document. Then from the View menu, go into Wireframe, and this is a trick that goes right back to, gosh, we were doing this in Corel DRAW 3. Go into Wireframe and then import your CDR file. Don't open it. Import it into the new document. If it looks like DRAW is going to crash, if you get that faded screen, leave it alone. Just walk away and let it go. I was talking to, I think, Ronnie, we did that with you, did we not? Oh, it was you. Okay, and we were able to open up the file. So it's another little trick that you can try to get the file opened up. Copy-paste can cause problems. It can also cause issues with styles, which I'll talk about in a minute. But styles are a big part of some of the problems that where is Ron? There you go. Styles is a big problem that Ronnie's having, and I've seen it mentioned on the Facebook page just last week. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anytime you do a copy-paste, it creates a temp file. It can also lead to additional corruption in the file. So rather than copy-paste, if you need another copy of a particular object, Control-D will duplicate it. It's a lot easier, and it doesn't create the temp file. Okay? OLE objects. Now, for those that don't know what an OLE object is, OLE stands for Object Linking and Embedding. If I take a file from, let's say, Excel, I've got a price matrix that I want to put on a chart. I'm doing a ball team schedule, and the salesman sent it to me in Excel. I want to copy and I want to paste it into Corel DRAW. If you're going to do something like that, do yourself a favor. From the Edit menu, select Paste Special. And you'll have an option for a device-independent bitmap or picture metafile. If it's text and you want that those clean, crisp lines, you're going to select device-independent or picture metafile. If it's a raster image, select device-independent bitmap. If you simply paste it in, you're going to create an OLE object linking and embedding. And what that means is that if I then double-click on this price list, it will actually launch a shell of Excel directly in Corel DRAW. So it'll load up the host application. That linking can cause potential problems in DRAW. You don't need the links in there. Unless, of course, the salesman said, here's the preliminary information, there is going to be changes. Then you paste it as an OLE object. Once the changes are done, go in there, cut it, and paste as device-independent bitmap or paste as picture metafile, and that will break the link. Easy way to tell if somebody gives you a CDR file, an easy way to tell if there's an OLE object, if it's an OLE object, is simply grab the object and move it. What you'll see if it's an OLE object, let me draw a rectangle here. We see the hairline outline. If this was an OLE object, I would see a diagonal line from here to here. And that's what an OLE object would look like. It will have that telltale diagonal line in the bottom left-hand corner. If you see one of those in your file, cut it out and paste it right back in, and that'll get rid of the potential corruption. The question here was holding the mouse down and doing the right click to duplicate. Does that create a temp file? No, it does not. That's the same as your Control D. So it's not a copy paste. Was there a question? I thought I saw a hand. I'm sorry? OLE is OLE. Well, we call it OLE. Okay, an OLE object. In the file that you guys have there, the other file, there's an OLE object in there. I'll show it to you later on. But basically, an OLE object, it's an object that somebody has pasted or put into a file from another application and maintain that link to the other application. If you go into Illustrator and copy something out of Illustrator, you can paste it into Corel DRAW. And if you double-click on that, and it is an OLE object, it will launch Illustrator within Corel DRAW. Kind of freaky looking, but anyway, it will launch the host application directly within it. And the main purpose of this type of file is to allow editability in the host application. Now, the final thing I want to talk about here, I think is the final thing before we, yes? Okay. What version of Corel DRAW are you on now? You should be running X6.04 is the latest. So underneath that, so the question for those on the line that may not have heard it is copying from one document into another and then closing down the original document. This can sometimes crash Corel DRAW. It's possible it's still working on the temp file or hasn't cleared out the temp file. That's one possibility. But also check your update and to see if you're current under the Help menu, About Corel DRAW, not About. And you'll find X6.4 right here. So 6.4.12, 1280 rather. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is styles. Who uses styles in Corel DRAW? Beautiful. Nobody. Okay. Here's what styles are. Styles can be very troublesome, especially for those in X5 migrating to X6. I'm going to, let me just minimize this panel on my side here. I'm going to the window menu, down to Dockers, and Object Styles. In Corel Draw X5, it was simply called Styles. Yeah, we've done an awful lot of work on styles, and this has brought other issues to light that we're now addressing. If I take, for example, this piece of text, and I'm going to make it red, and I'm going to add, right-click to add a yellow outline, and I want my outline to be a little bit heavier, so let me just double-click down here, and that's a quick way to get to my outline. Let's leave it dotted, sure. And we'll make it a little bit heavier. Okay, so that's a lot heavier. If I take this and I drag and drop this into my style sets, I've now created a style. So when you take a look at your case cards and you take a look at your cooler stickers, that red piece of text with the gold outline around it, that has a specific style to it. If you need to type another piece of text and you want it to look exactly like that, all you need to do is select your new piece of text and click Apply Selected, and it will automatically apply that style to it. Okay? So that's typically what styles are. Where it poses a problem is if I take this piece of art, as fine as it is, and I copy and paste this into a new document, I'm pasting that style into that document as well. If I open up a file, and let me just close off this for now. I don't want to spoil the fun. I'm going to open up this file. So here we have 8 up, very nicely done. It's a great looking file, but it's going to cause all sorts of problems because it was created in X5. There's content in there, or some of the content came from X5, and there's content in there that have a lot of styles to it. If I take, this file has 5 different styles, this file has 5 different styles, I will now have 10 styles in this new document. I took a look at one file that Ronnie had given me, and without a word of lie, there was roughly 217 objects in the file. There was 6,843 styles in it. Could not open the file. I was able to finally get the file open in Corel Draw, and I deleted all of the styles. Saved the file back out, and it's working great for her. Okay? Styles can be real troublesome. If you get an error message like this, chances are it's a problem with styles. Simply click on Ignore. And now if I go to my Windows menu, let's let it open first, I guess. I'll go to the Windows menu, Dockers, and I'll open up the styles in there. I'm not going to worry about the font for this situation. Sometimes if you're importing an image and you get a message that says styles contained in this file are already on your system, do you want to overwrite them or do you want to change them? You can say yes or no. If you say yes, it will replace the existing styles with the new ones you're writing in. If you say no, it will add them in there with a number to the end of it. So if I look in Windows, Dockers, Object Styles, here is the Styles Docker. Let me just slide this down a little bit. And we can see in here, I'm scrolling through this file. Here's one called Box Around. I'm seeing 132. I think 184. So that tells me this particular object, whatever has that style on it, was brought in 184 times, or this file has been repurposed multiple times. Yes. Yes. I understand that statement, and it does make sense. Okay, so for those on the online, Ronnie was told to say no, always say no. The reason that is because if I have a style called price text, and it will create a 184-point font with a 5-point outline of this color and that color, and I have a new image that I'm bringing in, and it has a style called price text, and it's a 12-point Arial with different color, and if I say yes, I've then pooched, technical word, I lost my original file, my original style. Okay, so by saying no, you're maintaining those styles. You do run into a problem though in this type of situation. If you're not using styles, delete them. And one thing you can do is, and in the Google Drive folder, you'll find a bitmap image called styles, and there's another file called styles.gms. That's a script I've created for you guys. And what you can do is you can install that into Corel Draw, and I'll show you how to do it. And a single mouse click will delete all the styles. Alternatively, I have to come in here, select the style, and hit delete for all 6,843. Okay, so customizing Corel Draw, I'm just going to show you this one thing, and then in another session this afternoon or tomorrow, if I do the other session, we'll get into more workspace customization and whatnot. But to install that script, what you'll need to do is Windows key letter R, %APPDATA%, and that puts you into the application data folder. Yes, it's Windows key letter R. That will bring up a run line. And then %APPDATA%, it's actually written in the PDF, the troubleshooting PDF, under the section of resetting defaults. To reset the defaults for Corel Draw, I would go into the Corel folder and I would rename this folder. I usually put the word old to the beginning of it. I did this just before this session, like 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago. And just rename that. That will reset the defaults for Corel Draw. But to install the script, what you're going to do is go into the graphics folder, into the Corel Draw folder, and if you don't have one already, create a folder called GMS. Now, unfortunately, these instructions I'm giving you now are not contained in any of the documents, so I will write them up, and I'll have Justin send them all to you, so you'll have those instructions. Or I may just create a quick little video on how to do it and send you the video link. Actually, let me just... So there's the GMS file. It's simply a matter of putting it into that folder, close Corel Draw down, okay, I'll write up the instructions for you guys and send them to you, but I'm putting them into the application preference folder. We call it, it's in the application data folder, and it's the preferences for Corel Draw. What's happening? Hold. Okay, let's talk about resetting Corel Draw's preferences. Anytime you're having a problem with Corel, and for those on the line, it was an issue in here of opening up Draw keeps crashing. What you'll want to do is you'll want to reset the defaults for the application. There's two ways to do that in Corel Draw. The first way, with the application closed down, hold your finger on the F8 key, function 8, and launch the application. You're going to get a message that says, are you sure you wish to overwrite the current workspace settings with the factory defaults? Answer yes to that, and that will reset the defaults for you. Another way to do it, and much more all-encompassing, is go into the application data folder like I did and rename the Corel Draw folder. When I launch Corel Draw, I'm going to get the notebook closed as it is, though I've just installed it. So those are the two ways to do it. Have you tried the F8 on that system? Justin, what are you doing to me? What was that?
Walk away from it.
What was that? I missed it. No, I missed what was said at the back there. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was good. That was good. You guys are all right in spite of what they say. So now that I've copied that GMS file into the folder, and just to show you that again, Windows key letter R, and type in app data. In the Corel folder, Corel Draw. Oh, isn't that interesting? Let's try that again. I created that in the wrong spot. Oh. In the Corel Draw folder, go into Draw, and then create a GMS folder in there and put that file into it. Now in Corel Draw, from Tools, Customization, Commands, and under Command I'll find one called Macros. And I have a video right now that I could probably share. It's putting a completely different macro in, but I can share that video with you guys. And here you'll find it, this macro storage, it's called Delete Styles. Delete Styles. And what I want to do is I want to change the appearance of that. So I'll just click on Appearance. And I'll browse to that image I've created. Take this, drag and drop it, and I can put that anywhere on the desktop, and then simply click OK. This can now be docked wherever you want it. It will stay there, and if I open up a file that has that abort, retry, or ignore, and I go into this, and I see there's a lot of styles, just simply single click on that. It will go through the file, and it will delete all the styles. If you do want to use styles with that particular document, then the recommendation is to then take the particular object and drag it into the style sets and create a new style for it. But that way you basically cleaned up the file and you shouldn't have a problem opening it again. This is deleting several hundred styles right now in this particular file. Yes, yes. Any questions on styles? Now, with respect to X5, we wouldn't get that error, that message. The file just wouldn't open. And we also didn't notify, if you're importing another image into X5, that you're adding more styles. It would simply add them. And the way styles get added to a file, as I've mentioned, is file import. If I import another image into this, and I'll show you that as soon as this is finished, if I import another image into this, it will add more styles to this document. If I copy paste from one file to another, the object that I'm copying, if it has styles, it will copy those styles as well, and it will populate in the styles Docker. So it's something to be conscious of. And when this is finished playing, it certainly is. I'm just going to leave it alone. This isn't the file that had the 6800. It was the first one you sent me. Yeah. Yes, you can. You can draw a circle and use the circle as a crop tool. Just draw a circle, put it over top of the object, and simplify. Intersect. I'll show you how to do that. Yeah. That's a great way to do it instead of power clipping as well. Okay, I think I'm going to stop this. How about it? The question online is, where do you get to the styles Docker in X5? It's the same place in as with X6. It's under the Windows menu to Dockers, and it's simply called styles. I believe it's about halfway down the list in X5. I'm going to end this unceremoniously. Yes. Now, if I had have left it alone, of course, it would go through and do what it needs to do. Yeah, it always checks for a solution but never finds it. Okay. So launching the application with the F8 key held down, as I mentioned, will reset the defaults. This is the message. Are you sure you want to overwrite the current workspace with the factory defaults? I'll simply say yes to that. Any questions on any of the stuff that I've covered so far? Any questions on anything that I haven't covered yet? Good. Okay. All right, let's get into printing. There are a number of issues that can arise with printing, and a lot of those have to do with the way a file is created. You guys are the power clip kings. I don't think I've seen any group that uses power clip as much as you guys do. And I'm sure a lot of the changes that we've done to it, specifically in X6, is because of what feedback that we've had from you guys. Power clips are great. Postscript printing is great, but the two of them don't necessarily work happily together. There are certain things in files that can cause a lot of problems. I'm going to bring up a file here. And another nice file. Looks really good. I don't think I have the font installed for it. The font isn't my issue. When you guys create files, and I've seen them posted on the Facebook page all the time, you know, can you Dropbox that, or can I have this file, can we use this file, and that sort of thing. That's great. But if I take a file that's been posted because I want the can from it, I want the bottle from it, maybe I want the basketball or the car, the race car, I'll grab that object and everything around it that I want, and I'll put it in my file. If you have other objects in your file that have potential problems, and now you grab this other object, let's say your file prints fine, it's beautiful, but now you bring in this other element that has potential problems with it. You put the two of them together, and it crashes draw, it crashes the rip, it won't print. It prints out terrible, it prints out 5 times the size. It's any number of things. I got an image last year here that was an ST logo on it. Print that file, and the TEA in the NEST logo was always dropping out. Managed to find out what the issue was. I fixed the file, and it works fine. But when you combine elements, potentially corrupt elements or potentially complicated elements together, it can lead to a real mess. As I say, this particular file, very nicely done. It looks, to me, it looks clean. It looks really, you know, it's a nice looking file. But there are definite issues in there. And so I just want to basically show you some of the potential pitfalls that, let's close it off. Some of the potential pitfalls that we create every single day when we build these files. So, first of all, this blue bar. Who's bothered by that?
The what?
The blue bar at the top. This right up here. Update. What that means is this particular file was last saved from X5. And we've done an awful lot of work. I see your head shaking. It wasn't?
That's not my file.
No, it's not.
But I have files.
It has X5 elements in it then. Yeah, so basically, and when it was opened originally from X5 into X6, the X, it was just X'd out, it wasn't updated. Basically what that is we've updated our text rendering engine. So there's actually two engines, two text engines in Corel DRAW right now. And there's an awful lot of advanced text features. We now support OpenType fonts, for example, where we didn't in X5. So what we're saying to the customer, to the user, do you want to update the text elements in this document to be in line with the new text features of X6? If you say no, you won't be able to use the new text features in X6 with an X5 file. So it's always recommended that you say update. But we have to give you the choice. And that's what that's about. I see a question coming.
Well, I have files that, yes, definitely probably were created in X5. They're being used in X6. I update every single time, and it's since been saved several times in X6.
And you're still getting the message? Okay, I'll look into that. But the information I've got is that you shouldn't be. But I'll look into that. Okay. All right. So let's close this off. I'm going to start and dissect this. Let's take the text out of the way. The text isn't my concern. My concern is the actual artwork itself. So we'll pull this off. And let me just ungroup that. Anytime we print an element, I'll delete that piece of text. Anytime we print an element that has an alpha channel, has transparency, what we have to do, the PostScript engine, and this is any PostScript engine, basically takes that object and breaks it down into what we call scan lines. And if you've ever imported a PS file, a PostScript file, or an EPS file, and you see a drop shadow, or if you go into wireframe, you see hordes and hordes of little lines, those are scan lines. And that's because we've taken the PS file, broken it apart into these separate scan lines, and sent those down to the printer. And that's typically how a PostScript file prints. I'll show you that right now, actually. If I was to copy this to the clipboard, I'm going to paste that in here. Tap the letter P, I know it's there someplace. And I didn't get what I wanted. You'll notice that if I select just the text, I've actually selected the control object. So if I edit the text, it will change the drop shadow. So that's all I copied was the text. So if I go and print this, and by the way, I've done some testing with this file. When I do a print to file with that file, as the file is, it comes out to be about 300 meg in size as a print file. Flattened, it comes out to be about 85 meg. So it's 1/3 the size, which means a lot. Presumably be 1/3 the print time. Not really, but. All right, so let's just print this out. Send that to the desktop. And now I'm going to import that file back in. And to import it back in, I want to use the PS EPS PRN. And that will bring in the PostScript. Doesn't matter if it's text or curves. Somebody sent me a file. Chris, is Chris in the room? You sent me a file last week, PDF file, I think it was, and you were having problems with it. This is how I brought it in. Strictly file import, use the EPS PRN filter, and it'll parse the file. And I then published, I think it was PDF we put it out at. I then published a PDF, and that's typically how you would do that. So now if I take this object, well, you can see right away, there is the file. Those are the scan lines. It doesn't understand the alpha channel, the transparency. So what it does is it rips it into scan lines and sends that down. That makes a massive file. So what does all that tell us? Let's go back to our file here. Suggestion is, I think Justin or maybe it was Ev this morning mentioned it. Take your file and flatten it, convert it to a bitmap, and send the bitmap. The suggestion was, going further, was to save the file as one name and then another version, flattened or original or something like that. You can do that. What I might do is I might keep the two of them together in one file, create a separate layer. Take your entire file, convert it to a bitmap, drop it to the other layer, and set your main layer to not print. Then you're going to go File, Print, and it will only print the printable layer. If you're not sure how to do that, in the Object Manager, click on this little triangle, New Layer. Never mind the spelling mistake. And I'll take all my artwork here, drop this here, and now I'm going to take this layer and make it non-printable. File Print will only print that JPEG or that flattened image. It will save an awful lot of print time as well doing that step. When I save the file out, I still have all the original content that I can fall back on. Okay, continuing with this one. So we'll take this file, it's a power clip. An easy way to edit a power clip, hold the Control key down and click on it. It takes me right into edit mode, and that's what I see. What is the point of that? You know, so this is the sort of thing that we see in these files. That's going to rip out. So even though you can't see it on the screen, the rip still has to process it. And what it does, and that goes for documents that are off the page as well, objects that are off the page. So you're doing a 2436 poster, and you've got a bunch of content around the outer edge of it. When I go File, Print, it's going to send everything down to the rip, and then it's going to say, okay, this is my page size, this is what's on the page, this is what I'm going to print. But you've already sent all that stuff down. It's taking time. So if it's off the edge, off the side of the page, get rid of it. If you need it for some reason, create a second page and put it all on the second page, and then when you go print, print this page only, page number 1.
I'll just delete it, print, print.
That's another way. Absolutely, Control Z. Okay, so let's take a look at this file here. I'm going to take this, and I'm not doing this to tear apart a design or anything like that. It's more to show you the types of things that you could potentially come across. You've got a beautiful looking glass here that you can put whatever logo you want on it. Just make sure that it's what you need and it's not going to cause potential problems. So this here we can see is actually a control curve. That's because it's got a drop shadow. If I click right here, it's actually going to select both elements for me. Because remember, drop shadows are bitmaps and bitmaps are square. So I'm actually clicking on the bitmap and the main object itself. And then I can, nice. Arrange menu, break drop shadow apart. I'm going to use this a lot right now. So to the left, hold the Control plus Alt key down, and I'm going to click and drag. I'm just going to bring this right out here because I want to use it. All right, so that's broken that apart. So that drop shadow is going to go out as scan lines. What's going on in this movie?
That's our file.
That is Justin. Justin. Your system just decided to restart. It installed some sort of thing, flashed on the screen, and we have it. Justin. Oh, so fast. They want a break? It's 5 o'clock. Okay, fair enough. Pooched, toasted. No good. It's pooched. It's no good. You see that? Yes. Somebody said NASCAR, that file has been fixed. There is a fixed version of it. And the problem is the logo in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you've got that file, if you've got that file, select that logo, and go bitmap, convert to bitmap. Set it about 200 dpi, and you should be good to go. Yeah. No, the NASCAR. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody did an awesome looking NASCAR image they posted on Facebook. And it had a car coming through a brick wall. I've got it on my system. Yeah. Oh, it's right here on the screen. Yeah, I'll just yes. So, yeah.
You're recording this, right?
I'm sorry? Yes.
And can you tell us how to access it at the moment we're recording?
Access the recording. That will be Justin because it's his account that's being recorded on.
Oh,
So he'll be able to set that up.
all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Able to print that with that gradient of the background coming out properly.
Okay.
And unless, of course, it's the whole thing's converted to bitmap first.
Right.
But like if I say I drop that logo onto a poster or something, or even just like a cooler sticker or a face card, I drop that logo on there and go to print. it comes off as just like a three-color bar sort of.
So you're putting PostScript?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just see if this will work. Let me get out of.
It looks fine in all the
Yeah.
previews and investigators, but when I go to, or when it actually comes out, it will come out.
Select those on the pull. That's in the document, actually. Yeah, it's in the document. Yes. Yeah. Control click will allow me to edit it. And I'm just pulling these objects out just to show. Look at that one battle. And I'll show this to the group in a few minutes. If I ungroup this, yes, there is. Watch this. So there's one. There's another one. Wait a second. I ungrouped it, and then I just move it out of the way. But look at this one here. This is a power clip. I'm going to go into this power clip. Control click to click on the power clip itself. Come on. That's it. That's that. No, look here. Look here. It's not there. It's still a lot. I'm running over the webinar. So. Yeah, I've got that now. Yep. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yep. Oh, get it out of there? Oh, here. Yeah, sure. Sure, absolutely. That's a drop shadow. So I'm going to grab this object. Now, this particular one, let me, that's a power clip. Can I do it this way? Can I do it this way? Yeah, okay, I can do it this way, I think. So I'm going to grab my drop shadow. You don't see how there it is. Drop shadow is in here. Come on around this way. Oh, sorry. There's a lag. There's a delay. So I'm over here.
Okay.
Blend is the first one. I want drop shadow.
Okay.
And I can click and drag and dictate where I want that shadow to be. That's all you do. That's all you do. I can also set the units up here. I can adjust the opacity of it. I can make it more intense there. It's coming off that way. I can change that and put it wherever I want to.
So it's under this
Yep.
booklet looking thing.
It's actually under the blend tool.
Blend.
Yeah.
Blend and it's drop shadow.
It's called drop shadow. Yeah. And it's in my book.
You make it a bit now. That drop shadow goes away.
That's correct. It becomes part of the bitmap. It doesn't go away. It's still there. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Let me just do-dos because I want to pick up where I left off when we come back.
The other thing I want to ask you is when if you create something, say it's too big to print, and they tell you to export it as a JPEG or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then you bring it into DFI by importing it.
Okay.
If it's 36 by 150, when it goes to print, it actually makes it a bit smaller. What am I doing wrong?
That's an issue with EFI.
That's an
Yeah, I wouldn't. If you import that image back into Corel DRAW
Yeah.
and take a look at the size on your
Mhm.
or talk to Justin. He may know.
I didn't know what program.
Yeah. Yeah. The way to rule out draw is to bring it right back into draw and is it the proper size? If it is, then you're good to go. If it's not, then we would look at draw. In there.
Yeah.
The resolution and size and that sort of thing. And if they've been modified or changed, then you could have a
The other thing is importing and
yeah.
run a line.
We get no issues with PNG. I say it all the time. The only files we have potential issues with are Visio, and I think when we go to the kitchen and get water, we walk.
Well,
Yeah, we're just doing one right now just to show them. But still got a little bit of time, right?
How long do I have?
No, do I get one or one?
What's a koozie? Okay. We call them cozies. Cozies.
You call them a beer pooch?
No, it's a beer pooch. Also sounds good. I'll use your diapers. No, koozies.
So I think we're going to start bidding for how much Roger thinks.
You are.
We're going to use anything.
I have no idea. I think that's a bear and let the people mark up. What's that? I can.
Right when you started doing the shorts on the tank.
Oh, my God, it's gone. Oh, it's no, it's gone.
You were right for the name for Jenga.
I was there.
You may not have been there, but you were there.
Note to self.
Your body was there.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Well, at the end of this file, I think I'll tear this file apart. Finish tearing it apart. I can stop there if you like. The other file, the 2014 file, I can do that tomorrow if you want to, depending on the time.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Sure. Yep. Yeah. Oh, I can do that. Do that today or tomorrow. It's up to you. All right, I'll use that as a break between this slide, this file, and the 2014. We're going to PaintShop Pro.
Yeah, that was cool. Report this file, and then if they can kind of hit you with some questions and stuff like that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure.
Done and done.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so just to continue with this file, I'm basically showing you some of the potential areas where there could be problems in the file. I've pulled this apart. You'll notice that there was actually two bitmaps, two copies of this particular image in here. These bottles weren't absolutely necessary. So in playing with this, I took a look at these. They're actually grouped together, so I ungroup this. And I can see that I have a CDR file here. It's on a power clip. I can ungroup that and take a look at how that was actually created. We can see two more copies. So there's actually two bottles there. This particular one here is a power clip. And let me just go ahead and edit this power clip. Hold the control key down and click on it. It's going to take a second for the screen to refresh. And we've actually got the entire bitmap in there that's rotated. So that's another thing that's not really that good, is to have rotated bitmaps in a file, because when we rotate a bitmap in a file, when it goes to send those scan lines down, because it's a raster image, it has to rotate those as it's sending them down. So that just increases complexity. This particular file, as I say, it's a nice looking file, but you guys have to be careful where you're grabbing the stuff from and how you're using it, how it all goes together. I'm going to finish the editing on this, and to take a quick look at the soccer ball, basketball. Can you tell I'm not into sports? Again, it's a power clip as well. In this power clip ball, they've actually created the container slight bit smaller than the ball itself to get rid of the drop shadow. So what you should be doing is don't worry about putting the ball in a power clip. If you don't want the drop shadow, delete the drop shadow. The drop shadow is an alpha channel bitmap that's going to create those scan lines. So this file is tremendous when it goes to actually output it. And there were issues with this file on output. Cleaning these things up would go a long way to solve that. Simply, I'm in the edit state right now of the power clip, and you see that I've actually selected this. Now let me just double check something here. What I've done there is I've just moved it. Okay, so I see why it was in a power clip. What I would do with this particular one, because this is a rotated JPEG, the drop shadow is part of the JPEG, what I would probably do is I would power clip it and then convert the power clip to a bitmap. So close this out. To crop that in a circle, I'm going to create my ellipse. If I hold the control key down while you're drawing a circle or an ellipse, it will create a perfect circle. I just want to grab the center portion of it. Screen refresh. grab the bitmap, and then I want to grab my, excuse me, intersect will do that for me, I think. And there you have it. So I use the intersect command. When you have multiple objects selected, select that, select this element here, intersect on the toolbar, or I can go to Arrange, Shaping, and Intersect. It will create an object with the same perimeter or shape of this object here. Pardon me? No, I'm just showing you how to do it. Yes, you would go to, if you want this ball, the complete ball, then obviously you're going to make sure it gets the same size and shape as the object that you want. I just did this just to show you. PowerClip will create a larger file. It also hides potential problems. You cannot do this if you have multiple objects, so you would have to use a PowerClip. So if, for example, I wanted this area here with that ellipse, I wouldn't be able to do it. It will only allow you, I can only intersect with the one element at a time. So in that scenario, I would use a PowerClip. I don't know that there's a need to finish editing or tearing apart this, dissecting this particular file. Let me just go through. So vector complexity, you've seen some of the stuff there. Anytime you have an alpha channel with a bitmap, and an alpha channel is a transparency. So, so if you use your shape tool to change the shape of a bitmap, that's another thing that I've seen people do. And here's something kind of interesting. I'm going to grab my eraser tool, and let's make that a little bit bigger so I can see it. If you're using the eraser tool to erase a portion of a bitmap, make sure you get all the stuff that you don't want. Make sure you erase everything that you don't want in there. By that I mean this. If I go arrange and then break apart now, I'll take this element, I'm going to grab my shape tool, and I'm going to take these nodes and I'll pull them out. I've actually got the entire image there. I received a file, oh gosh, this is going back 3 years now, I guess, from one of the distributors. And it was the, I know you guys are coming up with this campaign again for the military. This was a monster poster that had a G.I. Joe type guy with his all decked out with his equipment and whatnot. And it was a horrendous file. It would create massive print files. And the way it was created was by erasing a bunch of different bitmaps and then piling them all on top of each other. Well, when I pulled it apart, I found 17 copies of the main bitmap that was in there, and they were all tiny, tiny little pieces. So what happens is it sends that down to the RIP as scan lines and then trims what it doesn't need. And that's why it was choking the RIP. So if you're going to resize a bitmap, try not to use the node edit tool. If you want to crop off a little bit of the bitmap. So for example, if I had, let's go back in here. Let me just extract that. So there's the background for this particular image. Let's just, if all I want from this bitmap, and we can see it's 100 dpi, all I want from this bitmap is this little object here. I, of course, can grab the node tool, shape tool rather, and just push this in. But that's not really solving my issue. It's potentially creating another one. I've got a small image, cause more time at the RIP because it's going to send out all these scan lines. Instead, what I should be using is use the crop tool. If I select the crop tool and select the area that I want, it will crop it for me. I cannot take the shape tool and bring these nodes back out and see more of that image. They're gone. Okay, that's typically what you want to do with bitmaps. Another thing that I've seen a lot is, and I'm going to go back to this particular file here. No, I'm not. The 8-up. The 8-up file I showed you. All of those backgrounds on there are 888 DPI. And that's because I'm going to assume that at one point it was a larger image, and resize the bitmap by clicking up here. Resize the bitmap by clicking up here. Notice my DPI is 100. So I'll hold the Shift key down. I now have a 500 DPI bitmap image. Hold your Control plus Alt key down. Go to your bitmap menu. Convert to bitmap. Click and drag. Drop that right on your workspace. And I now have that icon here that can simply click on it. I'm going to set this to 200 DPI. Typically, for you guys, you don't need to go any higher than 200 DPI, and you want to keep it as CMYK, and click OK. That file also has a mixture of RGB and CMYK images in it. So that's another thing you want to be careful with. If it looks nice on the screen, you want it to print the same way, you're going to have problems with color management, because what's going to happen is it's going to take that RGB image, and it's going to use your color profile, convert it to CMYK, and your colors are going to be shifting. So always convert it in draw before you output it. And if I go back in and I convert another bitmap, it will stay at that setting, 200 CMYK, and simply click OK. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Okay. So lenses and drop shadows, again, they'll create scan lines, convert them all to a bitmap. Bitmap size, I've just covered that. Anytime you have a bitmap, if you need to make it smaller. I saw another file last week that had bitmaps in there in the neighborhood of 16,000 DPI. Now, obviously, that was sized down. And let's go ahead and print it. But that's a potential problem, so we'll go through bitmaps. And I talked a bit about color models. You guys all use CMYK. You should stick to CMYK. Your color palette along the right-hand side should be CMYK. There's no need to bring out an RGB palette for something like that. And I know some of you do web design. That's a different story altogether. You're going to use our RGB for web design. When you go to print, if you are having problems printing, the first question is, what type of printer am I printing to? Is it PostScript or non-PostScript? Who here can tell me how to tell? Anybody know how you can tell if it's PostScript or non-PostScript? Okay. Yep, that's one way. It'll say PS on it. But a surefire way to tell, much easier than that, is look at the tabs. If there's a PostScript tab, it's a PostScript printer. If I select a non-PostScript device, there will not be a PostScript tab. Okay? For non-PostScript printing, it's a GDI interface, a GDI device, graphic device. It takes its information from the video display driver. And that's why I say it's important to make sure your video driver is up to date. If you're having problems printing non-PostScript printers, go to DXDiag, and I've shown you how to do that, and it's in that document. DXDiag and check the date of your printer driver. Make sure it's current. If that doesn't work, you're still having a problem, select Print as Bitmap. In Corel DRAW X5, it doesn't say Print as Bitmap. I think it's Bitmap Resolution or something like that. It's a different wording in there. So you're going to select that, and that will rasterize it when it sends it out. For PostScript printing, and this question came up during the break, that image of the beer glass, the Bud logo, shows banding when you go to print it out. By banding, what I mean is instead of nice subtle shades of blues going across, there's definite solid chunks of different shades of blue. We call it banding. To help minimize or eliminate banding, you can drop down the length of that shade under your fountain fill tool and change the fountain fill in there. Or an easier, quicker way is just go into the print driver on the PostScript tab, and you're going to do this if you have any problems printing to a PostScript device. You want to deselect download type 1 fonts. You also want to auto-increase flatness, auto-increase fountain steps, and optimize fountain fills. And then go ahead and print by track, and that should help you out. If it still has a problem, or let's say you print the file I got last year from Jan, I guess it was. She's not here this year. It was Jan. Anyway, no, maybe it was Jen. Start with a J. Anyway, Nesty. The Nesty logo I mentioned earlier on. There was a file that had a Nesty logo. That was you. You are here. Okay. So the problem with that file, it took a while to figure out where the issue was. What was happening is the TEA or a couple of the letters were dropping out. To test that out, file, print to file. So if you print it on your device and it's coming out wrong, now you have to troubleshoot it. You don't want to keep using up media. So do a print to file, and then turn around and import that file back in. When you import it into Corel DRAW, you're going to use the PS, EPS, PRN filter. I'll select import. There's a PostScript file, and I want to use PS, EPS, PRN. And that will allow me to bring that file back in. So trying various things, and because it was a corrupt file or corruption in the file, typically what you want to do is you want to marquee select 1/2 of the document and print selection only. Does it look good? Yes, it does. So let's select the other half. Does it look good? No, it doesn't. Let's select 1/4 of that section or 1/2 of that section. So you now have 1/4 of the document. And by process of elimination, you can narrow it down. That particular NST file, it was an issue with the power clip. The NST logo was in a power clip container, and for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason that was causing the problem. As soon as I extracted it from the power clip container, it printed fine. So I don't know what it was with that container. You can recreate the container in power clip, but I don't think I tried that. But that's basically what the issue was with that. So process of elimination, select a small section, and then go ahead and print that and try it out. That basically is it for troubleshooting. Tomorrow, time permitting, 2 things I want to show. One is Paint Shop Pro. I've had a couple people ask me. There's a feature in Paint Shop Pro called Object Remover, where I can take a tree out of the picture completely, and you're left with just the picture by itself and no mess on the background. I showed it last year, yes. Yeah, but people want to see that again, so I'll certainly cover that. Somebody was looking for a cranberry or a cranberita, what do you call it? Cranberita, but they have the limerita jug. Color changer will make it pink, make it look like cranberita. I can show you that as well. We'll talk about some other stuff as well. I'll go over some Corel DRAW. So that's it for troubleshooting. Questions? Are there any questions on the line? Are there any questions in the room?
Can I answer you any questions?
Yes, it can. Go to shop. He knows everything. Oh, test time, I think. What's the current build of X6? Yes, sir. Yes. Okay.
That happened to me at X6.
In X6.
Okay. Well, sorry.
Nope.
That's fine. PDF.
Yeah, I was going to say further to that, double-click the rulers on your task on your interface. Click on Edit Scale, and you can actually set the scale of your document. So draw it at half size, and then print at 200%. Yes, absolutely. Double-clicking the rulers will bring it right into there, and then just set up your scale. So anytime you guys are printing anything over 60 inches, I guess.
The size almost at
Adobe.
And you can actually go longer than that. You have got it. You go longer than you want. It's just whether or not the file will hold up when you print it. So, whether the file will print. But I like the PDF like the just because one, I'm going to make it, and I don't like the effects.
Ronnie was talking about Facebook that you no longer import files because of the style issue. So how do you handle that? With you have to always open the file, copy what you want to print, and then paste it into the file that you're trying to import it normally imported.
That or you could import and delete the styles. Take your file.
And import that at once. Where I used to import and import another one.
Yeah. Build it up. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
But there must be a size limit where you don't put so much stuff in a container where it's grouped together, something that you can group it and then put it all in, but you can't go much over a certain amount.
Not that I'm aware of. So, a little more information then.
You group it all together, try to put it in
Yeah.
that'll be, you can't click on place in the PowerPoint, but if you want to group it, highlight everything, do it, maybe.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about there. But let's,
We have 47 images of different models.
all right.
Only individual. You can't visual select them all and put them into all of them. Or why would that you do that?
And a lot of times I'll group everything in the
Yeah, one of the half of a side because half of it got different. You can't put like sometimes you can't put like the whole sign instead of like half of it. That's a hard to do because you do it. Like put it on saying actually the post you have to be print after.
I'm just bringing in a large number of bitmaps right now. While I'm waiting for that to come in, what was it? There was a question here. Yes.
EPS is the only place to get there. Like I did for EPS, and it completely shuts down.
Okay, one thing, two things about, I'm sorry?
I get a little box that says EPS.
Right, you placed it as opposed to parsing it in. So there's two things, a couple things about EPS files. EPS is encapsulated PostScript, and it's basically PostScript code with a wrapper around it, and that wrapper may or may not have an image header. Okay, the image header is typically 96 dpi. It's the thumbnail. That's what you're looking at when you're importing an EPS file, unless you parse it and bring it in when you're actually bringing in the content. So you're seeing an image without an image header. An EPS without an image header is what that is. Take it to a PostScript device, it'll print fine. If you go to a non-PostScript device, you're only going to get the image header. Adobe Illustrator, when you save out an EPS file from Illustrator, I'm not too sure about the cloud version, but CS6, for example, has bitmap or has compression turned on by default for EPS files, and we cannot read a compressed EPS file. So if somebody's creating this EPS file, they need to go into Illustrator, and maybe Justin, if you've seen this before, they need to go into Illustrator. When you do the Save As, the second dialog box is a check mark that you turn off the compression. Save the EPS that way, you can then bring it in.
It's more of a standard. It's more of a standard. So, but if you get something like that, it does know because we won't understand those things. It's really okay. We'll do it. There's stuff. I don't disagree with you there.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot. There is a service running in the background. On my system, I've had that from time to time, and it was a Lenovo service. I can't remember what it is right now, but that particular service was using the hotkey, and that's what was causing the problem. When I turned that off, it went away. In the dev team, what they're telling us as a workaround or as a fix to it, what you need to do is boot into safe mode. If you're not sure what safe mode is, it's simply starting Windows with the F8 key, and it will go into safe mode. In safe mode, change the keyboard shortcut for Trace, for Corel Trace, to whatever you want to use, and then go back into Corel, relaunch Corel DRAW, and when you use what the font, it'll then use that keyboard shortcut.
What I do too is Windows has a built-in studio tool, basically, as well as a screen cap. So I'll just.
So no, go ahead. Okay.
So what I use all those students, I got a bunch of the fonts that I have on the screen. And then in Windows, it's under Start and Accessories, it's called Snipping Tool. I'll just pop open up the box here and just draw right over the text that you would what the font dialog, tell me what the font dialog does. It pops up a little scheme cap, right? So, like I said, on the students, I got a bunch of the font because videos don't keep it close to how it goes. And then open up the Snipping Tool, just create a little box here, no fonts around it. It'll say that's a cube tag, and you can just Google what the fonts for it, right? You just Google what the font to the word page, and browse, go to font, upload it, and so it's more of a manual process. It sounds clean, but it works without yeah, so Windows has Snipping Tool built in. So that's what I use. Or you can take a lot of screenshots and stuff like Snapchat and stuff like
Yes.
I go back to posting PDF. You explain the options I have on that. Like when I'm trying to send something, like say somebody put together a program, something they want, and I want to see it sent to them.
Right.
And sometimes I'll try to post the PDF and I can't quite get it. I quality have some way to get file.
Yeah.
I kind of play around to set it. But I'm not sure I understand.
Okay. The and Justin's probably used this an awful lot more than I have, so please chime in. There are some default settings that you can select. For example, prepress. If you publish a prepress, it's going to do various things like putting in crop marks. It'll ensure that the fonts are there and all the rest of that. It maintains the color. So, for example, if you have spot colors in there, it'll maintain that and that sort of stuff. If you publish to web, it's basically going to drop all your bitmaps down to 96 dpi. It's sort of resampling and whatnot. Going through the various tabs. So this will use the document color settings. When I mentioned if you're going to prepress, it will actually output the colors native, meaning if you have CMYK colors in your file, they'll be CMYK. If you have spot colors, they'll stay as spot colors and that sort of thing. Or you can specify what color model you want to put them out at. Under the document, this is basically document information. If you have hyperlinks in the document, you want it to maintain the hyperlinks and that sort of thing. Bookmarks, fairly straightforward there. When I go to launch the PDF, do I want it to come up to the first page? Do I want it full screen, or do I want to see just the bookmarks that are in there and allow me to link through it? This is basically how it treats the objects. JPEG compression is usually the default for it. It's a JPEG compression is a lossy compression, so what you might want to do if you're looking for something high quality, you want to make sure your JPEG quality is up high. Otherwise, it will give you a much smaller file size if you drop the quality down, but the quality is going to, well, it's obvious the quality is going to suffer from something like that. This allows you to downsample to specific resolutions. You can also render complex bills as bitmaps. So in the case of the Budweiser logo with the banding on it and that type of scenario, if you had a logo like that that was showing banding when you published a PDF, then you might want to render it as a bitmap and that sort of thing. The rest in here is compression, what to do with fonts as far as embedding them and that sort of thing. Prepress will automatically set a bleed if you need to do something, if it has a full bleed on it and that sort of thing. You're familiar with what a bleed is, so it typically goes right to the very edge. Halftone screen information. So because it's PostScript, it has it can have the halftone information in there. So the line screen as well as the frequency and the type of dot, whether it's a dot, a square, a star, or line, or whatever the pattern happens to be. So maintain that. Maintain OPI links. If you're running with an OPI server, Open Prepress Interface is what it stands for. If you're running with an OPI server, you can link bitmaps externally. So when you go to output the PDF, it'll grab them from there. This helps keep the file size down if you're using OPI, but you need an OPI server for it. Registration marks and densitometer settings, that's fairly straightforward. Security, open password and a permissions password. The PDF file that you guys have, the 50 tips and tricks, that's password protected, for example. It will allow you to view it, but it won't allow you to print it. So you would set up a password like that. Maybe you want the customer to, or the client to look at the PDF. You want them to print it, but only a low quality print. You don't want to give him high quality where he can send it someplace else and get the output done. You may not want him to edit it. So he wouldn't take the PDF file, bring it into Corel DRAW, and tear it apart or change information. So that's where you put in that information to sort of password protect the file. And then issues, excuse me, issues are, if there's any specific issues with the document, I can come in here, and this is a list of the various issues or potential issues that there could be with a document. And let's say, for example, overprint white. You never want to overprint white. It just doesn't make sense if you're doing full-color printing. So if you have an object that's set to overprint, a white object set to overprint, that's one message that you're going to get in there. Well, let's say you had a workflow where you always did want to overprint white. You might want to override that. So you can turn off that alert so you won't see it coming up, and that's basically how this area is handled. I think that's about it. Have I missed anything?
Yeah, for the most part, I'll just do PDF. So that would make our files, or I'll use Dropbox or PowerPoint.com, send it all over there, for large files.
You send it is another one. In fact, Corel DRAW X3 had you send it right on the toolbar. Yeah. That's another. There's a number of places where you can. And a lot of them have no charge, for certain storage size, which is pretty good. Any other questions? Perfect.
Well, Roger, we run. So we'll break out a little bit. Check out we got video there.
I have no idea. I've got one as well. Yep. Right. Just a second. Sorry, Justin. Let me end this session, and we recorded it as well. Somebody's asking for recordings.